Show of hands, does everybody know Dr. Tom Peters? Has everybody met here? There you go, all right. Now he's a local guy too, San Francisco State grad, and then he escaped to the Midwest. Anybody know what the mascot is for the University of Minnesota? Beaver.
Gopher, sure, I don't.
The Gophers, right? The Gophers.
Yeah, that's right.
The Golden Gophers, thank you. So Dr. Peters has a master's degree.
That's right, I got my doctorate.
Doctorate,
Yeah. I was in such shock during my 5 years at the medical public health school there that I wouldn't remember the Gophers or I was just trying to survive.
Right. Exactly. Well, then he came back to San Francisco and worked in the San Francisco Department of Public Health and Human Services, and then worked in Marin County and in Department of Public Health as well, if I remember right.
You did? Yeah, thanks, Paul.
After about 19 years and 24 years of
Yeah.
in public health, he was recruited
Yeah.
to be the CEO of Marin Community Foundation. And that was because of his balance of understanding people here that live here and their needs, and a sense of compassion, common sense, and the leadership skills that he was exhibiting at that time. So then he came here to Marin Community Foundation as the CEO, and he's been here for how long?
17 years now. Wow. Yeah.
Time flies when you're the CEO.
Yeah.
And then no private business would have a CEO for 17 years.
Yeah.
What's the average
That's right.
tenure? You know, like
I
7
know.
years here, the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And no challenges, right?
Yeah, no, it's all been smooth. And no controversy.
No controversy.
Yeah. No decisions we make are
Nobody cares.
anything but well received, yeah.
Quiet people are right.
And every budget gets unanimously approved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Listen, after working for many years for Dianne Feinstein and the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, this is good territory. I'll tell you.
And we're all still working for Senator Feinstein.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, one form or another. Yeah.
Well, thank you for agreeing to come out and share
My
anything
great
with us
pleasure.
today.
And nice to be with all of you, and welcome to the foundation as well.
Thank
Nice
you.
to have you back, Paul.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Loving it.
neighbor.
Yeah, I used to have an office, some of you know, right downstairs from this office, and so that's how we originally met.
Yeah.
Started working together, and as you know, I run Stanton Chase, retained executive search firm, and we moved in here and became Stanton Chase while we were here, and I think we did 4 or 5 search assignments for the Community Foundation during the early years here. So that was great. And so Dr. Peters is kicking off our 2015 speaker series for CEOs. And the name of our series is, What's It Like to be the CEO of My Company? So this gives people a chance to tell you what it's like to be the CEO of their company, a little bit more about their industries, about their organizations, about the challenges and the people. And so Dr. Peters is our first speaker here in January. We'll have more throughout the year. And as you know, in July or August, we have the CEO Club Barbecue, and then in December, the holiday party. So we're going to have speakers for those programs. I thought I'd just kind of kick it off this morning by talking just a little bit about how did you come about to get this particular job? I mean, we're all CEOs and we change jobs from time to time, but how did you get this job? Did you know somebody here?
Well, a couple of people, several people on the then board of trustees knew me or knew of me from my days in San Francisco were very public. I was chief of staff of the health department for the whole decade of the 80s. Which meant I was sort of chief community spokesperson, if you will, like a UN simultaneous translator. I was trying to take all of the mysterious medical information of the unfolding AIDS epidemic and translate it to a very, very frightened, understandably frightened community. So for a decade I was a pretty public figure, TV, radio, whatever. It wasn't my thought, wasn't my planning, just like all the rest of you as CEOs. You know, there are assignments that come your way that you weren't anticipating. That was certainly one of mine. But anyhow, how I got here was courtesy of two of my mentors in the medical public health field applying a 2x4 to my head. Because I knew nothing about a foundation. I was absolutely happy being a public health doctor, and as you indicated, Paul, I was 24 years into the mission, I'm sure I'd still be right there, absent a couple guys who said, hey, you ought to take a look at it. And at first I thought, no, I don't even, why would I love public service? But they talked me into taking a look at it, talked me into it, banged me into it.
Right.
And I have loved it. I've loved it. Sort of second career, that's got a lot of elements that are both frightening and bewildering. For the first couple of years, I thought, what have I done? But then once I settled in, I really had a sense there's a continuity between my public health career and this one.
So it took a couple of years before
Oh, yeah.
you really felt like this was your calling?
Well, I don't know about calling, but I love public service. The reason I wasn't in private practice was that I really wanted to go into public service, and San Francisco was very public, and I loved that. And at first I thought that I wasn't sure about the transition to something that is private, and we represent 400 plus families and do so with a lot of privacy and thoughtfulness, we hope, for each of those families. It's very much different than being in the public sphere as intensely as I have been. So it took a while. The language, the argot, having to learn a whole new set of colleagues. Some of you undoubtedly have changed jobs, changed positions. So yeah, it took a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you took that second look,
Mm-hmm.
what was it that changed for you that got you thinking, well, maybe this could be the right way to go?
I looked a little more deeply at the fact that that the resources here, though coming from the government world, I looked at the resources here as being so small. I thought, geez, how could you operate that way? With that little money. In the 80s, my annual operating budget at the health department, I had 6,000 staff, and I had an annual operating budget of over $1 billion a year. But that meant that as June started to end, I would get ready. I'd go get another $1 billion. So the thought of coming over and I did a kind of a wise guy reaction to it. I said, well, I don't want to just be operating on the fumes of $1 billion. I want $1 billion.
Right.
But that wise guy attitude dissipated happily, and I looked at actually the fact that these grants can go out over such a range of individual and family and community life. And it also, I stopped just long enough to realize that though I've been operating, all my training, all of my first career was focused on a disease model. What's wrong and how to fix it. This thing was the converse of that, was to look at and make investments, literal investments in individuals, families, communities, in the hope that, in the intention of what is right and what can you build up. And so I got intrigued by flipping the coin over, and have loved it ever since.
So
Yeah.
preventing things from going wrong is the
Yeah,
focus
yeah.
as opposed to...
Yeah, preventing it, and then, again, my blinders have been on health, public health, which is a pretty broad field in and of itself. Certainly in medicine, it's a pretty broad field. But then to open it out and say, well, what makes it important is health. It's not just health issues, but housing and community and arts and education and so forth. So once I slowed down enough to pay attention to that, I got hooked. So which is why my answer to you is I've been here 17 years and it's always up to the board I work for, but I keep rolling. It is
What's the greatest satisfaction that you get in your job today?
Families, the families I work with, it's 400 plus families, and just by definition, you think about it, okay, these are people who, in every walk of life, business, investment, education, entrepreneurship, every walk of artists, movie makers, they've been so successful, as a matter of fact, that they have resources well beyond what they need for taking care of their family or even their family's family and so forth. They have those resources, but imagine they have this second component, which is a heart to want to put some of those resources to work. So I have a completely selective, self-selected group of families, Paul, who have, wallet and heart to get together.
Yeah.
So, twist
You
my
could
arm.
leverage that.
Twist my arm. Good night, and nice people.
That's it.
Really nice people. Yeah.
Good. So looking forward now, you've been here 17 years. I'm sure that's plenty of time to accomplish all of your goals, right?
Yeah.
What goals do you have left?
Oh, plenty. I mean, that's the thing about the range. We have two sides to our house. One is that we have a very big fund here that is well known, more well known in Marin. It's the Buck Trust, the legacy of Dr. and Mrs. Leonard Buck, residents across. Some years ago left legacy. They're now both deceased, but they left a legacy that's just sort of mind-blowing in terms of the resource dedicated just very, very broadly to the community and people in Marin. So we do all our grant making there. It's about $35 million worth of grants every year just in Marin. But then all the rest of our families, we're doing grant making across the country. And around the world. So we do grants to every continent of the planet, every state in the Union, and across every range, arts and humanities and housing and biology.
So even though it's the Marin Community Foundation,
Yeah, that's just where we live.
it's getting money
Yeah.
everywhere.
Everywhere. We're about $65–70 million worth of distribution, and about somewhere around a third or so of that money goes out of Marin, regionally, nationally, internationally. And almost every one of our families, with the exception of Dr. and Mrs. Buck, actually said that we want this to be for Marin. That's the only fund out of the 400 plus we have, Paul, that's got a geographic restriction. The rest goes all around, as they say, but it's really interesting. Almost every one of those families gives locally, as well as regionally, nationally, internationally. It's not, in other words, it's not one cohort that does national stuff and one cohort that does local. It tends to be very, very blended.
I imagine it's pretty easy to give away money.
Yeah, it's definitely improved when I go to a holiday party and somebody says, "What do you do?" Because my first career, when I said, "Well, what do you do?" I go, disease and epidemics. It's kind of a showstopper, people.
Dishwashing hands.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like right now. So somebody comes in and you say, "Well, what do you do?" And I say, "Well, I work on Ebola." Yeah, false.
Stay over here for a minute.
Yeah. So it's nice to be able to represent, as I say, to represent these incredibly generous families. I mean, I don't represent them, but I mean, we're the advisory and technical advisors to them, and that's a pretty big privilege. Yeah.
And does it take a large staff of people to be able to give away the money?
Well, it's part of it is giving it away, part of it is taking care of it while it's here. Because we do have assets of about 1.6 billion right now. So that still bugs me that it's just the fumes that I work with at any given time. But it's 1.6 billion that's been permanently dedicated to philanthropy. So I mean, once families establish a fund here, and they put money into those funds, that money is then actually is technically the money owned by the foundation. In other words, the family has given it away. The advantage there is that they get that good tax treatment at that time. But it's still something that we have to obviously really work at to make sure that we are caring for the money and investing the money. Luckily, I've got a fantastic investment committee. Actually, that's where I'm off to in the city. An investment committee of San Francisco Marin investment specialists that advise us with regard to investment money. So I've got a staff of about 50 here. And then, so about a third of that staff is involved in giving it away. About 2/3 is keeping care of it
Oh, okay.
before we give it away.
Right.
You know, I have a bumper sticker that I remind my board and my staff about, which is you can't give away money you don't have. So, you know, if you need to remember why, we want to be sure to
Manage it well.
manage it well. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so far so good. Yeah, so far so
Excellent.
good on those investment results.
In this job today, how it's evolved over the years, you have a bachelor's degree, you have a doctorate degree in health and medicine. What skills are you using in your career right now today? What skills should we all be working on?
Well, you know, I think primarily at this point I'm sure that every one of you uses this every day, but it's more in the soft skills. You know, it's not as technical a job as I used to have in my first career. I think the fact that I really enjoy people, and that I really, really appreciate the fact that there's a cohort of families and individuals out there who are interested in making investments in kids and families, particularly who have, for a variety of reasons, are really tilted on the scale of equity. You know, they've been either by bad luck or bad choices or bad circumstances or something as insidious as overt or covert discrimination, any number of reasons. These are people that are interested in balancing the scales, at least for opportunity. You can't balance the scales for outcome, but you can balance them for opportunity. And the fact that I like and admire and respect people who are interested in that makes it that sort of draws that characteristic out in me, and I think that's primarily what I use now, not the technical medical.
So the soft skills are what you were focusing on yourself, improving your CEO goals.
Yeah. Luckily, I've got of that 50 member staff, I've got people that really, really know their aspect of our function.
The technical
You know,
aspect.
the technical.
Do you do anything to stay in tune with your passion? Because it sounds like being close to your passion is also a critical component of being a CEO.
Yeah,
so
no.
do you do anything to stay rejuvenated in your passion?
Yeah, you know what's great? I get the opportunity. In fact, I could do it every day, but I don't. But anytime I feel flagging at all, I can go out and see where some of this money is invested. I can go as nearby, right up here to Hamilton School, or I could fly to South America and look at an island that we bought down there. You know, I mean, it's.
Right.
But what I get the biggest kick out of is going to either an affordable housing project that we just opened up in here in Nevada on Diablo Avenue, 49-unit affordable housing for seniors. And you sit there, and Congressman Huffman and I went up there and we had our little ribbon cutting, you know, and the people were there were expressing such gratitude. I mean, it was just, you know, and these are people that in their earlier lives helped make Marin what it is now. You know, I mean, it just feels great. So I'm sort of like a Chevy Volt. You know, I can drive around and I can just plug in to that, you know, to that gathering of.
Having a Chevy Volt, I can relate.
Okay, very good. So, you know, it's just it's a recharge.
Do you keep your staff plugged into that source too? As the CEO, what do you do to make sure everybody else is motivated and passionate as you?
Yeah, we absolutely, we encourage and facilitate and underwrite volunteers. Perhaps all you guys do too. I use guys in the very generic. All of you may well do this as well, but we time for people to be out, not just to go and look at things, but to go and participate and to volunteer. We do, whenever we do like an event, you mentioned your July barbecue or something like that, when we do like a staff event, we almost always tie it with going to one of our grantee programs, and we'll have the event there, whether it's a theater. We just did it. We did one to an improv theater. We've been out to one of the mall properties. We've been to schools and so forth. And so we sometimes